Get ready for action, because we are diving straight into the drama surrounding the Dallas Mavericks. Mark Cuban has admitted he actually tried to buy the franchise back from the Adelson family, revealing the intense behind-the-scenes maneuvering and the deep feelings he has about the team's direction. We break down exactly what happened when Cuban attempted to reclaim control and why this attempt didn't go exactly as planned.
Tired of dropping your phone or struggling to hold it with one hand? The PopSocket's Pop Grip gives you a secure grip, works as a phone stand, and even lets you swap the top for a fresh new look. Simple, useful, and perfect for everyday phone use. Click the link in the comments to grab yours on Amazon.
Next up, we look at the fallout from that ownership saga. We explore the severe seller's remorse Mark Cuban is experiencing after selling the Mavericks in 2023, and we uncover the shocking details about why he felt compelled to consider buying the team back, even though he ultimately said he doesn't regret the sale itself. Find out the real reasons behind his regret and the tension with the current owners. Now, let's shift gears completely and look at the bigger picture impacting everyone. Mark Cuban is unleashing a serious warning about the U.S. healthcare system, slamming skyrocketing costs and corporate consolidation, and detailing why people are terrified about affording their medical needs. We examine his radical proposal for a new healthcare model and the industry shakeups he is calling out. Finally, we wrap up with the economic snapshot of the week. We review the U.S. economy showing a 2% growth rate, while gas prices have absolutely skyrocketed to $4.43 per gallon, and we hear Mark Cuban's direct critique of the entire healthcare structure. Plus, we look at the dip in President Donald Trump's approval rating. Stay with us because this is your full breakdown of the biggest stories happening right now. Mark Cuban has publicly revealed his past attempts to regain majority ownership of the Dallas Mavericks, admitting he pursued an effort to buy back control from the Adelson family following his sale of the majority stake in 2023. In an interview for the Front Office Sports podcast, Cuban explained that several parties contacted him expressing dissatisfaction with the team's direction. He stated that he was willing to contribute his equity if the current owners would facilitate a sale, but he did not anticipate that such a move would materialize, asserting that the Adelsons had no interest in selling. Cuban currently holds a 27% stake in the team after divesting 73% in December 2023. The existing agreement grants the Adelsons the right to purchase another 20% of the franchise from Cuban within 4 years, which would reduce his ownership to 7%. Following the change in majority ownership, the Mavericks traded superstar Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers in February 2025, less than a year after an NBA Finals appearance. Reflecting on the situation, Cuban stated earlier this year that while he does not regret selling the team, he regrets who he sold it to, acknowledging mistakes made during the process. When questioned about attempts by other investors to partner with him to seize control, Cuban indicated that while he would consider buying back the franchise, he acknowledged that it was no longer a viable option in the current landscape. He speculated that a more likely scenario for him would be purchasing a different NBA team, specifying that he would only consider a warm-weather location due to personal preference against cold climates. Mark Cuban is reportedly experiencing significant seller's remorse following his sale of a majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks in December 2023. Cuban sold 72.3% of the franchise to the Adelson and Dumont families for $3.5 billion, citing estate planning needs and the financial strain of competing in the NBA as primary motivations at the time. Recently, Cuban has openly expressed regret regarding the transaction. When questioned about the possibility of buying the team back, Cuban stated that while he would if there was any chance, that's just not the game anymore. Cuban revealed that any attempts to reacquire the franchise originated from external parties who were dissatisfied with the situation. He explained that individuals contacted him, and he offered to contribute equity and other assistance if they could persuade the current owners to sell. However, Cuban confirmed that this effort did not materialize, acknowledging that the current owners, the Adelsons, have no interest in selling. This admission highlights growing tensions between Cuban and the Adelson family over the team's future direction. Cuban previously stated that while he did not regret selling the team itself, he regretted who he sold it to, admitting he made a lot of mistakes in the process. The sale was partly driven by the team's media rights situation, which Cuban identified as the team's largest revenue source and crucial for financial competitiveness. Cuban originally purchased the Mavericks in 2000 for approximately $285 million, transforming the franchise into a championship contender, including winning the NBA title in 2011. The sale marks a significant shift in the relationship between the former owner and the franchise. Cuban remains a billionaire who has indicated he might consider buying another NBA team under the right circumstances, though he admitted he likely could not win a high-priced bidding war for a franchise today. Mark Cuban has sharply criticized the current state of the U.S. healthcare system, warning that escalating costs, corporate consolidation, and misaligned incentives are creating severe financial strain for both patients and employers. Speaking on X, Cuban stated that the public is deeply concerned about affordability, noting, "People hate the economics of healthcare. They are terrified they won't be able to afford what they need, and they already can't afford their deductibles." He further highlighted the burden on businesses, adding that employers face significant expenses, stating, "Employers have to pay $30K a year, and it impacts their hiring and firing decisions." Cuban targeted large healthcare conglomerates, accusing them of manipulating industry rules, including strategies like manipulating Medicare Advantage, MLR, and managed Medicaid programs, leading to issues such as underpayment and overcharging across independent pharmacies and physicians. He characterized the industry structure as the furthest thing from an efficient market and challenged those advocating for industry breakup, questioning if such action would worsen the situation. Furthermore, Cuban criticized the health insurance sector, suggesting major players have operated more like financial entities, exploiting regulatory gaps rather than traditional insurers. He proposed an alternative model linked to the Affordable Care Act, suggesting that monthly premiums be redirected into a combination of savings, catastrophic coverage, and routine care, with any unused funds retained by the individuals. He specifically suggested a model utilizing ACA Silver Plan level monthly deposits to fund savings, stop-loss insurance, and direct primary care, with unused balances accruing for future use. This commentary comes amid ongoing political and financial scrutiny of the system. Mark Kelly, Diarez, previously noted that rising insurance costs forced many Americans to drop coverage after ACA subsidies ended, attributing the predictable premium hikes to Republican lawmakers. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren, DMAS, moved to block a proposed $50 billion funding request tied to military efforts, arguing that healthcare spending highlighted a significant mismatch in national priorities based on cost estimates reported by Reuters. The U.S. economy showed modest growth in the first quarter of 2026, with GDP expanding by an annualized rate of 2%, surpassing the previous 0.5% pace, but falling short of economists' 2.3% expectations. Meanwhile, inflation pressures persisted, as the core PCE rate for March climbed to 3.2%. In monetary policy, the Federal Reserve held the benchmark federal funds rate steady at 3.5375% on Wednesday. This decision is viewed as potentially being Chair Jerome Powell's final policy move before Kevin Warsh assumes leadership on May 15. The Fed explicitly cited high inflation, partly fueled by a surge in global energy prices, as a key concern. Energy markets experienced a dramatic spike, with U.S. gas prices soaring to $4.43 per gallon, representing a 61% increase since December. This dramatic rise is linked to oil briefly hitting $126 a barrel, the highest level since the Iran war commenced, signaling significant repercussions for the transportation and energy sectors. Political sentiment also shifted, as President Donald Trump's approval rating fell to 40% in a recent voter poll, reflecting voter dissatisfaction with his economic management despite record stock market highs. Beyond macroeconomic indicators, sector-specific concerns surfaced. Mark Cuban voiced strong criticism regarding the U.S. healthcare system, pinpointing rising costs, corporate consolidation, and misaligned incentives as major drivers of financial strain for both patients and employers, which carries implications for the broader healthcare industry. These developments have had notable impacts across various markets, affecting entities like the State Street SPDRS and P500 ETF Trust, Alphabet Inc., and Meta Platforms Inc., underscoring the interconnectedness of economic, energy, and political factors.